Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Everyday Philosophy for the Common Citizen, no other than Miss Fredah Mainah. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Frida, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Oh, thank you so much, Lucas. My name is Fredah Mainah, and my PhD is in leadership, but I specialize in self-leadership. I have been a teacher and professor for decades, over 30 years now, and that's why I decided to focus on self-leadership. And as I was focusing on that, I realized that people don't talk about it as if it is philosophy. They don't see it like the questions they ask or the life they lead every day is philosophy, but it is philosophy. And that's why I wrote this book, Everyday Philosophy for Everybody. But most people will call everybody who is not in leadership common citizen. So it was a joke on their citizenship and how we are referred to as ordinary or common citizens. And this book is for those of us who are seen as ordinary citizens.
Miss Frida Mina, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Everyday Philosophy. Can you tell us about this book?
So this book was like a journal that I was writing about myself, all the questions I ever asked and couldn't get an answer. And I decided, okay, I can approach it the way I always approach learning. I can ask all these questions. So if you go to the table of contents with me, please, you can see the kind of questions I was asking about my identity, about my purpose here on this world, about as human beings, what are we doing here? How do we navigate that? You know, and so as you're thinking about your own life and including your name, you didn't participate, well, most of us didn't participate in the choice of the names that we bear. I'm Frida, but it wasn't the name that I chose, it was chosen for me. And then when it comes to the world, when you're looking for a career, again, you get into that career and you start being called by that career. Or when people ask you, so what do? You never tell them that, oh, I influence people to think about themselves. You simply say maybe you're a professor or you're a nurse or you're a doctor or you're an analyst or you're a podcaster. Nobody ever pauses to think that is just another role. I am also a sister. I'm also a mother. I'm also a citizen of this world. I'm more, I am so much more than just, my name, my career, being a mother. I am much more than that. And so that's why I wrote the book as a reflection and as journaling of all the questions about life that I was asking myself. Because I knew if I was asking those questions, I definitely wasn't the only one asking those questions. There were many more people out there. And so I wrote it for the many more out there.
Miss Frida, how does focus shape the selection of philosophical ideas and the artistic interpretation within the book?
So the philosophy behind it is everyone's philosophy because we're all living this life. And so, like I was saying earlier, the questions we ask ourselves, who am I? And then I realized there was more to just asking, who am I? There was more when I looked at science, there was, what am I? Because science is now telling us we are all energy. And so I wanted to know more about that. That forms the basis or the influence of why I wrote this book, because I wanted to know more about myself. I was self exploring and I was journaling all the questions I was asking and all the answers that I was finding, whether it was in history, whether it was in architecture, whether it was in arts, whether it was in history, whether it was in sciences, quantum science, everything, everywhere I went in my research, finding out how does a human being navigate living this world in this planet? How do we navigate identity? How do we navigate self? how and what is self. So those were the things that were influencing me. So I approached it the way I approach any research, with good questions.
Very well said, Miss Frida. Very well said. Beautifully articulated. The title emphasizes the common citizen, how these focus shape the selection of philosophical ideas and the artistic interpretations within the book.
Well, the reason I chose the word common citizen is because those of us who are not in executive leadership positions or in positions of leadership that are recognized by society, we are always referred to as the common citizen or the ordinary citizen. And so I thought, okay, I'm not writing to the elite, I'm writing to the rest of us, the ordinary, the common citizen, the common man, as they call everybody else. And so I thought, what is the one basic question a person who is not elitist ask themselves? And when they look in the mirror, what are they looking at? And when they trace their life cycle from birth to death, what are they looking at? And so in this book, those are some of the things I explore from the beginning of, human consciousness. Once we are born, we live through childhood, teenage, adult, young adults, adulthood, careers, family, businesses, and then reaching maturity age and this, asking questions of life and death, and after death and afterlife and all of that. So that's exactly the theme, or the common thread that I followed: the human living stages and human consciousness.
Miss Frida, what criteria guided the selection of artists for this project? Where you're looking for specific styles, approaches to conceptual thinking or prior engagement with philosophical themes?
That's a very good question, Lucas. Thank you. If you look at the cover of the book right now, as we are looking at it, you can see the elements that make up Earth. You can see water, you can see fire, you can see land, you can see plants, you can see the spirals of growth. So even as I was thinking about the cover, I was thinking about the philosophy of living life on this planet, not outside this planet, just on this planet. What is that like? In the end, as a researcher, I like stories and I like lived experiences. I don't want something that I can't demonstrate to anybody. I also don't want to tell a story that I haven't lived it myself. So I looked for uh, stylistic, methods of writing that would help me frame my mind within that, where we call it in research phenomenological research, which is qualitative, not quantitative, qualitative. In qualitative phenomenology, you can express your own lived experiences and, explain it to other people, and if they too have experienced what you have experienced, you can call that data. And you can use that data to expound on whatever topic that you're talking about. So I didn't choose every topic on human condition. It's too much to handle. I just looked at, the line from birth and the kind of questions that happen from birth to death. So I've talked about issues of birth, I've talked about issues of living, I've talked about issues of death, I've talked about issues even of, in another book, I took it further and talked about even death through suicide and amortization and so forth. But in this one, I just wanted to focus on living life. How do we live life? How do we explore that? Who are we? What are we? Even when it comes to careers, how do we choose careers? And I explained how my career chose me rather than me choosing it because of my background. I came from a community where girls weren't really encouraged to go to school, but I had parents who encouraged me to go to school. And because of that, I was able to change some of the narratives. And so I'm explaining to people that it is possible to change your narrative, because wherever you came from, or whatever beliefs and customs that you grew up with, you can actually just flip and change and decide through self-determination and self-leadership what you want to be, where you want to go. So that's why I called it everyday philosophy for the ordinary person, because the ordinary person isn't thinking about quantum physics, isn't thinking about relativity. You're just thinking about everyday questions.
Balancing accessibility for a broad audience with the inherent depth of philosophy is tricky. What strategies did you employ to ensure ideas were simplified without being oversimplified?
Well, life is simple in its real essence. Life is simple. It's not difficult. It's not complicated, because you wake up in the morning and you do whatever it is you do on a daily basis. It don't matter what it is. Life is that simple. It gets complicated when we bring in other systems, other things to do with infrastructure. But when you look at it as a daily practice, there isn't anything difficult about waking up. We sleep and we don't even know what that is. We wake up and we don't even know what prompted us to wake up. So there's no difficulty or challenge about that. We eat when we feel hungry, and we don't even know how digestion happens, but we just eat and we know digestion will happen. So life is that simple. So I didn't have to oversimplify or complicate it. I just followed that simple but not simplistic. So life is simple but not simplistic. So even my approach to writing is simple but not simplistic, because I'm not assuming anything. And I am also not looking at other people's lives as if mine is better than theirs. No, I'm looking at it with that lens, with that worldview. This is life. This is how we live it. This is how I lived mine. And then I'm encouraging people to share. So, what is your story?
How did the overall book design, like layout, sequencing, or topography, or paper quality, contribute the experience of engaging with everyday philosophy?
I specifically chose a large font, and I chose even, a big layout of the cover and of the book, so that anybody, including a 5-year old who knows how to read, can handle it with their hands, because of the fact that I wanted even adults who have maybe eyesight problems to be able to read it. So I chose a layout, font size, everything with in mind of a 5-year old, or an 8-year old, 80 years old who wants to read at that age. So I wanted it spread out through a lifespan. And when you look at a lifespan of a human being these days, because of technology and advanced medical health, people are living beyond the normal of 70 years. They're living up to 80. So I'm looking at 5 years to 80 years and in between, and thinking about handling it, whether it is on Kindle, whether it is by print, whether you're reading it sitting down or lying down or looking at a screen. I thought about all that and I decided this is the way to go. Broad font, broad size of the book across, so that when you're handling it, you're not straining. You're not you to read it. Those who have better eyesight don't even need glasses to read. And those ones who have glasses, it's an enhancement, because the font size is very legible. So I chose with that in mind. So I didn't choose font like 11 to make it a smaller book. I chose 12 to 14, so that it can be legible.
Were there any philosophical ideas or artistic interpretation included that you anticipated might be controversial or general audience?
Well, about controversy, we cannot avoid controversy because we don't all think the same. I wanted a situation where people can think freely without having to think, oh, if I think this way, is it a controversy? Because it's a personal story, it's a personal journey. There's nobody else inputting or judging. So I knew, or I had in mind the fact that someone else might look at it and think, oh, why would you think about talking about stuff like this? But then the question is, or the question should be, why not? Because this is a personal journey, this is a personal story. Whoever is going to be reading this book, I've encouraged them to also reflect and journal their own journey and their own story. So it's really very personal. So it has nothing to do with controversy.
Miss Frida, as a self leadership coach, speaker, CEO, and founder of Rainbow Honest Sanctuary, what are your short term and long term goals?
My long term goal right now is to make Rainbow Honor Sanctuary a global organization so that it's not just based in the US. I would love to partner with people who would like to just start something similar elsewhere, because I am noticing that there are more people looking to engage in this kind of journey of telling their personal stories. And so at Rainbow Honor, we have lots of places where people can sit and meditate and reintrospect and journal and engage with perfect nature to find out the very things that I'm talking about here, but for themselves, just like I found out for myself. So my goal, expand Rainbow Honor Sanctuary to become a global phenomenon.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Frida, and hoping for more and more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there? One, to be like you, an author, a speaker, a CEO, and self leadership coach.
Well, leadership should be seen not as a corporate idea, but as a personal thing, a personal yearning, a personal desire where you're leading yourself. And so I would urge most people to start learning the components of self leadership, self regulation, self knowledge, self exploration, emotional intelligence as well. And if you if anybody wants to succeed today, I am encouraging everybody to explore self leadership and spiritual intelligence, of course, plus emotional intelligence. So with those three, I have noticed in my life, it has given me structure, it has given me self discipline, and it has given me success. So all the success I have is from self leadership and spiritual intelligence, and of course, self exploration for self knowledge.
Miss Frida, before we wrap up our discussion for today, and well, thank you for your advice. And before we wrap up our discussion, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, book 101 review in fifth season, and comedy 101 in second season, food 101 in fifth season too, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Frida, ultimately, what lasting impression or small shift in thinking do you hope this unique fusion of art and philosophy leaves with its readers long after they close the book?
What the one thing I would love to tell people is, look at yourself as the greatest project that you will ever work on. And that great project, start asking yourself, what is this project? Who am I? What am I? What am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing here? What am I missing? How can self leadership and spiritual intelligence mixed with emotional intelligence help me know myself better? And once you know yourself better and you lead yourself better, you will lead everybody else much, much better. Nobody can live your life. And so start from there. Nobody can live your life better than yourself.
Indeed, Miss Fredah Mainah. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, and all your business?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and your audience. I appreciate your audience.
So, Miss Fredah, where do people buy your books?
They can buy my book on Amazon. As you can see on Amazon, just type my name and you'll be able to see my books. And just type FREDAH MAINAH and you'll be able to see a selection of my books.
How about how to participate to your advocacy?
If you go back to my website, there's a button for either donating or booking a class. So go to my website and it is personalized life coaching at, and we have our own domain. So it is https dash personalized dash life dash coaching.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Fredah Mainah because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Miss Fredah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time too.
More to come, people. See you soon.